So one thing I wanted to make a video on was, um, as a creative, as someone who loves creating stuff, we often have a picture or a visualization of what we want to create in our mind, right? But as we know, not we always don't achieve the same thing in our mind, like picture perfect accuracy. And I feel a lot of creatives who have like perfectionism bias, who love to make things perfect, often procrastinate and often don't really do the things that they want to create, because we have locked in and visualized something in our mind and we're actually trying to create that. And in order to create that, which means we're trying to be perfect, right? We want to get that exact output. We'll try to like get all the smaller things done and like basically give ourselves excuses why we need all of these small things in order to achieve that exact vision. But the entire system of what I'm trying to say is that the entire system of thinking about achieving that thing in that particular manner is completely, I wouldn't say wrong, it's just um, not adequate. It's not default, or it's not optimal. It's not the optimal way of thinking. And obviously, we don't learn how to think. No one teaches us how to think, so it's nobody's fault. But I feel one way, I mean, multiple ways that you can, create more and put your work out there, and just be happy with the process of creating, is by just doing it, by just creating. But like sometimes that's a very fuck all way of sharing advice or sharing a tip, which is like just do it. um, but the other ways of achieving this is to actually reframing or reprogramming the way you think, which means that whenever you want to create something, right? I think some of the steps that I try to follow is, I'll try to create a minimum viable version of what I want to create, whether it's art, whether it's a business or an app or an idea or a something, or a video, for example. Instead of trying to achieve the like final finished look, try to do the same thing but like in the smallest MVP way. MVP stands for minimum viable product, right? So what you're trying to do is, you're trying to basically create a tiny version of your idea. It could be on a napkin, it could be a video on your old smartphone device. It could be a voice recording. Creation does not mean that you need a big canvas and the perfect paintbrush, and perfect environment and music and all of that for you to make stuff. I think creating is can be as tiny as picking up your device and hitting record, or taking a piece of paper and a pen and just like scribbling. It can be as tiny as that. And I think if we're able to do that, then we're able to tell our brains that, oh wow, this is what we can do, and then you get probably more ideas, right? So sometimes locking in with a particular idea, trying to achieve that specific idea, which could be perfectionism, is not always the best optimal way of doing things, especially if you like to make things perfect, right? If you're someone who does not like to make things perfect, that's completely fine. That is actually the best, a good thing, because you end up executing and not worrying about how it looks, or you're just making sure it gets done. So yeah, scaling down your task. I think this is similar in the book Atomic Habits, which is scaling down that big goal of yours into an atomic level task, and just doing that can really start the momentum. You can build momentum, you can sleep over it, come back, build more, keep working on that. And I think perfectionism is not V1, it's V5 or V7 or V25. Like different variations and versions of your original idea that you have in mind. Because you never know what you explore when you actually attempt the task, when you actually attempt not even the task, the thing that you have in your head, right? So the when you work on things, you get more ideas, you learn the reality of executing that particular idea or project, and you'll come up, a creative mind always comes up with different ways and different methods and different ideas to solve the problem it faces at hand, right? So just a small thought that I wanted to share, which is if you are a creative that always wants to make things perfect, and that's kind of actually making you procrastinate and like not allowing you to execute the things that you have in your head, scale your ideas down to the smallest level of unit that you can just take action, and then just start from there. And try not to think try not to lock in with that particular this idea is cool, keep the idea in mind, but like what it should look like, I think we should release and let go of ourselves from that. I'm not saying it's bad to like have a very clear picture of what you want and what you're trying to achieve. I think it's a good thing, but be flexible with how you're going to get there. Be flexible and be okay with slightly shifting the way that looks. But having a general idea is always good. So yeah, all right, cheers, bye.